welcome to the Shit Creek Survivor Show, where we openly share our personal stories of getting stuck up Shit Creek without a paddle, the good, the bad, and the funny, okay? But most importantly, we celebrate how we got out of our own shit creeks and got our lives moving in the right direction again. For those of you not familiar with the term stuck up shit creek without a paddle, it refers to situations, places, and circumstances we ended up in our lives that we never thought or believed we would, and never, once we were there, believed we would ever get out. But somehow we did. And this is where we share those stories so that others can gain from them, okay? The show was created basically to combat the belief that we live in this everything is perfect, social media, fake world where people act like everything is, has, and always will be perfect. It's not. I'm joined again by my friend and former police patrol partner, Dennis Kaufman. How are you doing today, Dennis?
That's me. I'm good. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good. In the last episode, we discussed how new trauma that you experience will actually be saved in the same place that we store all our trauma. So, what that really means is old trauma is stored with new trauma, okay, which can make it kind of confusing. Check out the last episode for further explanation on that, okay? And for today, since I believe it goes hand in hand with what we discussed last, we're going to talk about addiction, okay? Because addiction, to me, I didn't understand addiction whatsoever, and all of a sudden I was an alcoholic. So why don't we just openly discuss it? What do you think, Dennis?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Now, because it's the most common and legal drug, let's talk about alcohol in particular to start. Is that all right with you? Because that really affected me.
Yeah, I think, and I think that's a good place to start. But we set that video back and forth about addiction. I think you get into it a little bit later.
Yeah.
It can be anybody. It can be
Yeah.
a situation. It can be a person. It can be illegal drugs. It can be prescription drugs. It can be adrenaline. You can be an adrenaline junkie and be addicted to adrenaline, and it can cause problems too. But yeah,
Absolutely.
alcohol is a good for one to start with because it is legal. And I feel like it's a pretty common one across the board with a lot of possibly our target audience, other former police officers or military officers or friends and families of ours who probably partake in the adult beverages too. So
Adult
yeah, it's a good place to
beverages.
start. Hit it off.
Yeah. So my first question I wanted to put down is like, what is the good part about using alcohol? Right. And the things I was able to come up with, the classic, it is a social lubricant. Okay. It can turn introverts into less of introverts and become more
The life of the
feel a
party.
sense, yeah, feel a sense of belonging to the group, if not the life of the party. It helps with anxiety. It can be fun. It's legal. It gives you a sense of escape. And it is promoted in society through advertising or when you're out to eat. It's a big push. Are you getting drinks? Sporting events, whether you're watching, even participating, playing softball, whatever it may be, or even it's promoted through peer pressure growing up or just in society you see everyone else drinking, and it's funny when people are drinking they usually notice people who aren't and they ask, why aren't you drinking? It's
Yeah.
really odd.
Right. Well, I mean, how many times you said it too? Like, I don't trust somebody who doesn't drink because when they wake up in the morning, that's the best they're going to feel all day. I think that's like a Frank Sinatra quote or something like that. But so there you go. It's just socially always on. It's in the movies. It's on TV. It's at the games. If it's too expensive to buy it at the concert, you figure ways to bring it in a plastic bottle or something. That
Oh
looks
yes,
like
people get very creative, very
yeah,
creative.
binoculars with the drinker in it.
Like,
So yeah, it's all over the place. I mean, it's very much a high profile societal drug.
yeah. And I don't think I ever realized how influential advertising actually is. You can rationalize it and look at it and be like, you know what? This is all BS. These people in this commercial are being coached to look like they're having a good time and all this kind of stuff. They're really not drinking. But when they put the camera behind it with the right filters and it looks like fun and it looks like people have a sense of belonging, and if you're feeling lonely and you kind of, want that sense or that feeling, it's right there in front of you every time the
Yeah,
commercials come on. Like I pretty much stream everything now because that way I don't have to watch commercials. I don't have to
yeah, I like
watch
that
that
too.
way. Yeah, because
Although
like as
Hulu
an
stinks, it makes you watch the commercials. I've noticed since I've
I
gotten
know.
Hulu. I'm gonna
I
have to turn.
know. And
Like,
then
let
when
me
like
fast forward in commercials.
exactly, they don't let you anymore. But yeah, they like make you pick which ad you're gonna watch too, so they know you're paying
Yeah.
attention. Like, come on. I need like a like an automatic thing for that commercial.
Well, I mean, it's like then you see that they're having fun in that setting. You're like, I want to emulate that. I want to do that too.
Which
In
is
your mind,
juvenile, you know. Yeah, you
and in your
know.
mind, you're hanging with your friends. It probably feels like that a little bit. But have you ever hung out with somebody who's been or a group that's been drinking all day, and you're the last one to the party to start drinking? You feel
Yeah,
like I got to catch up because it feels out of place because you're not in the same level as they are. They've been going at it a lot longer than you have.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's so funny because I've noticed since getting sober, it's like when you first show up to a party when everyone's been drinking. When people have been drinking, it's so funny how close they want to get to you to talk. You know, like usually you'd be here, they're like right here. They're breathing all over you. You smell it, and they keep looping the same story. And
The repeat and repeat. The
you're like,
looper.
yeah.
Oh
So when,
God.
so does that mean like when I was messed up, I was that guy just looping and
Probably.
blah? Probably. Yeah. I was having a good time. I thought, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
was
you
actually,
were.
I was, yeah, yeah. I mean, I
But
was
on
having a
to
good
the important part. Why did you do it? It was so it made you feel good. It lowered the inhibition. And what else? It
It
quieted
feels
the
good.
demons in your head. It quieted the voices in you. It quieted the doubt. It quieted the anxiety. It didn't make you feel uncomfortable in your own skin.
Yeah. And it takes a second to really kind of think on that in your own personal situation. But when you give yourself the luxury of actually really listening to the truth that you know in your mind, like, why do I drink or what is it doing for me? You kind of know. I don't think I ever drank for the taste, to tell you the truth. I mean, eventually I really liked the taste, but I also liked what it did for me. So, I mean, that can get twisty too. Now, so we talked about kind of like the good things with alcohol, the reason people like use it, right, or partake in it. Now, what are the negative effects of alcohol? What would you say, Dennis?
Poor decision making skills.
That
It's
is
bad on your
very
kidneys. It's bad on your body. Bad for your heart. Bad for your blood pressure.
your liver.
Yeah.
Get that fatty liver. So I think you hit it right on the head. It inhibits your ability or oppresses your ability to function physically, mentally, and spiritually. They actually call hard alcohol spirits because they actually considered it something like a spirit taking over you that's kind of taking you to another place. Yeah. And so, that's where the term
I
spirits
feel
comes from.
possessed sometimes when I'm too drunk. That's for sure.
And how many times have you seen someone just go off the rails? Not only as in law enforcement, but even just like at a party, like normal people.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you'll see someone or at a bar. All of a sudden you've got a bar fight out of nowhere and you're like, what the hell? Like how did
And
that even happen?
it's over who stole somebody's seed or something. It's not over anything
Or
specific or good.
or a look.
Yeah.
You know what I
You looked
mean?
at me.
Like,
You're
and
looking at that girl?
or you looked at my friend or my friend. I mean, blah 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 blah. So you never know what you're going to run into. It
Oh,
inhibits your ability and other people's ability to function. So be aware of that. Okay. Now we're talking about alcohol, but really quick, what would you say other drugs do for people that partake in them? Like if we were talking about, the opiates, or if we're talking about cocaine, if we're talking about, do
when we're
you
getting
think
to
that,
it, you get into like an addiction range of it or abuse of alcohol and
yeah,
why. You're going past the social stigmas of it and the social advancements and all that kind of stuff, having fun with your buddies. Now it's getting
yeah,
into like masking the pain, hiding the voices in your head, the negative stuff, trying to make you feel better and like sleep. Like that's one of the big reasons I drank so much was I had trouble going to sleep and not waking up with nightmares from different things that I would just drink and drink and drink until I just passed out and then I could go to sleep and not hear all those voices anymore. So I would say that's the same thing when it comes to more of the addiction and the problems with opiates and everything else. They're just trying to hide some pain.
yeah, absolutely. Now, as far as alcohol, who are alcoholics? Like, who are these people that become, or however it happens, are alcoholics? Because my basic
Weak bitches,
understanding,
right? No, no.
yeah, yeah. Well, you kind of get this idea of like an alcoholic is sort of like a weak person. You could even
Yeah.
imagine like they live under a
Homeless under
bridge.
the bridge. Yeah, what you
Yeah.
said.
Jobless. And the big thing I think we put on them is we believe that they don't have willpower. Like they're not
Yeah.
strong enough or wanted enough. If it were us, we'd be able to do it no problem. right? But I found out that through going to AA, I have sat next to homeless people who were alcoholics and addicts, and I've also sit next to neurosurgeons who have the ability to write
Yeah,
pain
because
pills
anybody
for
can be an alcoholic.
anybody from homeless people, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, white collar, blue collar, all races, all ethnicities. Anyone can be what
Well,
is
anybody can
this?
be an addict, can be addicted to something that they're masking their pain with, and it can be porn, it could be meth, it could be alcohol, it could. I mean,
Yeah,
we all have different vices, and what you said is it's funny because the people that are pointing the fingers at the alcoholics have their own vices that they're going through, their own
yeah,
situations that they're controlling to influence their pain, to hide their pain.
right. Exactly. Exactly. So I guess the question is like when you're drinking so much and then you get to a point where you know that the whatever you're using to escape the pain is actually hurting you. So this could be like alcohol, like was for me. It was I was creating a physical addiction to the actual alcohol substance. I had a spiritual addiction to it because it gave me some sense of freedom, some sense of worth, and I just a mental obsession. Like when I was using alcohol, it became the center of the day by the end when I was at my worst. Everything was planned around
Yeah,
when am I getting the alcohol? What time? When am I going to start drinking? Is there going to be enough? And should I go get more so I know that I can go further on into the night so I can make sure like I basically pass out when I do pass out and then I wake up and I do it again. So it was just a continuous, just looking for opportunities and moments. And it really was an obsession because like I could make any situation call for a drink, whether it is good or bad. It was either time to celebrate, here comes the alcohol, or it's most of the time when I was at my worst, it was sadness. So if I'm
yeah,
sad and depressed, fuck the world. Fuck the world. I'll do
yeah,
whatever the fuck I want. And that included, people close to me.
yeah. You'd be like, oh man, what a day! I need a drink.
Exactly. Or what a great day. I need a drink.
But again, I think it's I don't want to paint a picture where like alcohol is bad because some people can control their alcohol and it's not an addiction problem for them.
100%.
I just
100%.
would put that out there. I think it becomes a problem when it negatively affects your life, your work life, your home life, your personal life, your health. When it starts to become where it's a crutch, you have to have it, and it's affecting you negatively in some way. Now it's become a problem that needs to be addressed. Again, whether it's alcohol, porn, or meth, or anything else in between. Um,
Well said.
there's my 2 cents.
Um, no, I really like it. And I'm actually about to play a clip from a rabbi who was talking about addiction. Yes, like, so I should clarify really quick. I have alcoholics in my family, but my mother's not an alcoholic. My father was not an alcoholic.
Right.
I never saw them drinking to the extent that I felt was like unhealthy or anything like that. And I've never seen them really use it as a crutch. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that was one of the reasons, like, yeah, I've got relatives who are alcoholics, like grandparents and whatever it is, but here's my parents. They're fine, and not a big deal for them. And it's easy when you're an alcoholic to and I think you need to sometimes focus on the nitty gritty. Alcohol is like basically my kryptonite. And what that does is it can skew the world, and you may actually unintentionally or intentionally look at people who can drink, and you're like, you don't understand it. It can almost create like a tension or like a resentment
Yeah.
for the
Especially.
person who's so consumed by the consumption of alcohol. Why do they get to do it and I don't? Which can
Right.
sound which can sound out there, but I am an addict. I'm addicted to alcohol. If I could have it right now, my body wants it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if there were a scenario that came up that's like here's drinking without consequence, I think my brain would look at it twice or a
Yeah.
hundred times. But then it all comes down to the decision I had to make had to make, alcohol for me is death. Like I'll literally end up in the hospital again and die, or I won't even let myself go to the hospital. But I appreciate what you're saying for sure. And I
Right.
know that,
And when you realize that and you have to quit, then you have to quit. I mean, that's just, you have to do it. I mean, I've had some friends that have had some health issues that said that they had to stop drinking, and you went
yeah.
through it. At the time when you were going through it first, I was still drinking pretty heavily, but I
Hmm.
would try not to really do it in front of you. I think one time playing golf, I might have pre-mixed like a Gatorade or something and just sipped on it myself. That way it wasn't in front of you, but I was still getting my fix because I was still centered on it. So I was just going through it a little bit different time than you were. I'm getting there
Yeah.
now. I haven't got to the point where I think I need to stop drinking, and maybe that's my fallacy. That's certainly a possibility. But I just wanted to just slow down. I feel like I was drinking too much, and I needed to get to a point where I didn't have to have a drink to go to sleep, and I don't have to drink so much every night that I pass out. I just have one or two socially here and there. I'll be fine, and I can stop. So if that ends up
That's the
working for
key.
me long term, it'll work for me long term. If not, then I'm coming running to you to ask for help, and you'll point me in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I got you. E- Everyone has their own road, and some people get to a point where they're like, what's going on? And I think a lot of times it happens. I've seen it with like friends when they get married and now here comes a kid. They're like, okay, life is changing
Yeah,
and I need
time
to
to
change
grow
to
up and
go
for me to
there.
change too.
Yeah. And they make that conscious decision without alcohol literally having you in its grip saying, no, don't you feel better with me?
Yeah,
Wouldn't it be easier with me? But that doesn't happen to them. So it's funny when you see the world through your eyes, it's totally different than the way other people see it. The impulses, the feelings, whatever it is. But
right.
yeah,
And how we respond to things. Everybody mourns differently. Everybody grieves differently. Everybody responds differently to stresses and hormones and life
yeah,
events. Do what works
yeah,
best.
for
That's why we
sure.
call it tools for the toolbox. Here's a hammer and a screwdriver. One time the hammer will work, sometime the screwdriver will work. And I know I'm talking about alcoholic beverages.
There we go.
There's
Now,
your humor.
I was able to, and I shared it with you, Kaufman. This rabbi is actually talking about addiction. And what I'm going to do is turn
What's
it
funny is
on.
I saw that on my own and saved it. I was going to send it to you, but I had just sent you something else like a few minutes before that, and I didn't want to like bombard you with things. So
Oh,
I
no, it
waited,
was
and then you sent me the same video that I had saved to send to you.
that. So it must be meant to be played.
It was meant to be
Absolutely.
played. I just wanted to
So
make
let
sure
me
you knew
play.
that part.
Yeah, let me play this for everybody. This is a rabbi talking about the truth about addiction. I'm not sure what the individual's name is, but it's actually really neat the way he portrays what addiction actually is. So stand
Yeah,
by.
I like how he said it too. It was a different take on it, and it makes sense.
What people don't understand about addiction, which is actually the reason why I decline most invitations to speak about the topic, is that people think that addiction has to do with drugs and alcohol. And it has really very, very little to do with drugs and alcohol. First of all, there are other addictions. People become addicted to behaviors or to people, relationships. It doesn't have to be a chemical. But secondly, and much more importantly, what people don't get is that the drug that the person is using to numb themselves is not the problem, it's the solution. I'll say it again. The drug is not the problem. The drug is the solution. Yeah, it's a solution that destroys your life, but it's a solution nonetheless. Meaning to say, the real issue of addiction is the underlying issue that the addict is attempting to address through the self-numbing behavior of the drug of choice. And what is that underlying condition? Very, very, very simple. A deep discomfort with one's own self. It's like being allergic to one's own self, uncomfortable in your own skin, terminally unique, lonely in a crowded room, always wanting to feel a part of, instead feeling apart from. And that is that gnawing feeling that the drug or the alcohol, the high-risk behavior, is being used to numb the person from, to distract them from.
What did
Yeah,
he call it? He called it pleasure-seeking behavior. I like that
pleasure.
terminology too for addictions. It is. It's pleasure-seeking behavior to mask the pain, to hide what you're thinking about, to hide the traumatic event that went on in your life, or
Yeah,
whatever trauma it is, you know.
for sure.
And to you, it's the solution. It's the thing that helps that pain go away for a second.
Yeah. And it's hard to give that up. I mean, you have to, like, the more we talk about it, and it's funny, the more AA meetings I go to, it just is so self-evident that I was clinging to something to make me feel better compared to
Right.
like living the high life, like hooray, everything's good. Wrong, So it is what it is. So that's kind of where I found myself. And I was in a place at my worst where I felt not only was I not doing well after being shot and PTSD and all this kinds of stuff, but I had to dig myself out of this hole. And I had created another hole within that hole, which was now alcohol. So now I had to deal with two problems, which is super overwhelming. Like, understand that like, I have to get sober now. So I have to take away the thing that's making me feel better about this over here. And I have to face this now. And I have to do it on my own, it felt like. So, what does AA recommend? We talked about it before. Not trusting
To
myself, but
replace it.
I needed to replace it. And I needed to replace it with a higher power.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Originally, my higher power was the chair because I was not in contact with
Right,
a
right,
real
right.
a real God.
The chair was making better decisions than you.
It was making better decisions than me. I kind of had to earn my way back into making decisions for myself. I still have to run by everything I do with either my wife or, friends, family, whatever it is, just kind of like make sure. That's why I go to therapy. I'm constantly talking about what I need to do.
And I heard a good one. I heard a good one too. Why David versus Goliath? And I don't remember where I saw this one. It was something on Facebook. I might have shared it. I might not have. I don't remember. But David used the sling to defeat Goliath, but he never used the sling again. What did he use after the sling? He used Goliath's sword. So sometimes the troubles that come up in life require different tools and different weapons. And sometimes you take the very weapon that was meant to kill you and start using that to fight your future battles.
Heck yeah. Heck
I
yeah.
love that correlation. He
Yeah.
didn't have to use the sling anymore. He used it for that because that's when it was needed. But after that, he needed something different. You need the same
Yeah.
thing when you're battling addiction. You need the same thing when you're overcoming trauma. You'll need the same things if you want to go through life and walk with God. And it
Yeah.
can be all three of those things together. It can be individually, whatever works for you. You're battling addiction. You need different tools at different times because it's never going to be the same tool that always gets you through it.
Yeah. And one of the key things, like parallel to that, is like I had to stop making my own decisions and trying to like control, like, all right, like basically charting my own way because I had to realize that my decisions had gotten me into the situation that I'm in. So, how
Yeah.
can I expect my own knowledge and decision making skills to get me out of it? That
How
doesn't
can you
make sense.
trust it? You should be able to trust yourself that way. Obviously, you're making bad decisions. Why should I trust the next thing I want to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
My instinct is self-destructive and pleasure-seeking behavior. How
Right.
can I trust myself to make a decision to get away from those two things on my own? It's
Exactly.
not going to happen. It's not going
And
to happen very easily,
right.
if at all.
Absolutely. You have to find help. And that's one of the hardest things for me to do sometimes is just like succumb to the idea that I can't figure this out. Because a lot of the times, like, I don't know if this is true for anybody else, but like, even when I like started going to meetings, like one of the moments or one of the notions I had in my head is like, I wonder what will happen when the people I used to know find out that I'm an alcoholic and how they're going to see me different. And that can be incapacitating because you're putting like other people's opinion of you almost in front of your own opinion of yourself.
Well, that comes back down to the self-love. We don't have the self-love. That's why we're drinking to begin with.
Right. And for
Care more about
me,
other
without,
people's opinions. Sorry,
yeah,
I interrupted you there.
no, no, it's so, yeah, it is alarming. And I am so guilty of it. I am so guilty of it. Like hiding and wanting to look like a certain way. But if I was going to get sober, I couldn't go half in, like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It doesn't work that way for me. Like I had to go all the way in to save my life. And what that meant is I had to separate myself from even that idea that other people are thinking and giving any idea that that opinion is worth something. Now, notice
Right.
everything I'm talking about right now was going on in my own head. So I had to get out of my own head and I had to start using tools like you're talking about, which I acquired at AA and therapy and, working with other people. I had to start using and taking the risk and chances on if it worked for them, Who's to say it won't work for me? The only way you know it won't work for you is what?
Try it.
You don't try, right? Like the only way to guarantee something won't work for you, whether it be leaning into faith or whether it be getting sober or
Right.
whether it be in shape, it's all in that. And you have to succumb. So I did. I had to succumb to a higher power. And in my world, that was because I was raised in a Christian household, that automatically was really easy to do that to God and Jesus as you would in Christianity. So that's what I had to use was a higher power. And Kaufman, you sent me a great video from Jordan Peterson
Oh, I like him.
talking about what'd you say?
I like him. I like George. He says a lot of things that really resonated with me. I lost both my dad and my stepdad about a year apart from each other, and my
Mhm.
mom was just a wreck, especially when the stepdad went, because that's who her partner was for the last 30 years. And I told her I learned the greatest thing from Jordan Peterson. You don't feel like doing anything, just do something. Move the smallest rock around, but move a rock. You want to make your bed, clean up your room, just put away your socks one day. Just make progress, notable progress, one way or the other. And she just reminded me that she still thinks about that, and it's been a year and a half since I gave her that advice. But anyway, I gave you a Jordan Peterson video too, and we could
I
probably just
really
edit all
like
this
it.
out if you'd like.
No, this is great. And I'm with you. Like I think everyone kind of finds their own, I'll be on YouTube.
Everybody grieves differently and mourns differently and overcomes differently. You got to find what works
Yeah.
for you.
But I'm with you. Jordan Peterson, I think it's just he originally, I guess, was getting a lot of push around because he was telling men again to be strong. Like
Right.
basically like you don't have to believe that you're, a man, you're guilty of being a man, like all this kinds of stuff, and like actually said you should be working on yourself.
Yeah.
Like you should be actively pursuing becoming a better person for because it's going to make
Yes.
you feel good. And if you're feeling good, you can be good in the environment that you're in. So, and I really like that. It was almost like a chipping away approach. Like you said, when you wake up, make your bed. If that's the only thing you do today, fine. That's great. But
Yeah.
at least you started with making your bed.
Contribute in some way. I can't carry the big rock. That's fine. Carry a small rock. Carry a rock. Move a pebble. Get
Yeah.
it going every day. And sooner or later, you'll start picking up the bigger rocks and the momentum will be going.
Actually, doesn't Jordan say pick up your own cross? So,
He might have. I mean, he's got a
yeah,
lot of videos out there. I haven't seen all of them. But
I've heard
he
him
also
say,
says, like, be dangerous, but know how to control it.
yeah, I like that one too. Become a monster, but learn how to control that.
Capable of being a monster, but also know how to control it.
Yeah, very true.
That's a very good masculine kind of thing to teach young boys and teach them how to control it.
Yeah, for sure. And not use those things for
Yeah.
personal
We got off track
gain.
a little bit. You're going to share a video, and I got you completely off track here. I apologize.
No, no problem. I just really like that he's basically pushing individuals to be better, to become
Yeah.
their best, and that in the pursuit of becoming their best, they're going to find the good and the bad parts of themselves, but the bad parts of themselves aren't actually bad. They're just parts of themselves. So it's like
Right.
acknowledging there's something within me that, yearns for this, or acknowledging, whatever it may be, but we're not perfect beings. Like we're supposed to be trying to
Right.
explore who we are, and every individual is completely capable of good, and every individual is capable of bad, and that we have that personal decision to make. So let me play this. This is actually Jordan Peterson's take on the cure for alcoholism, and it
Oh, yeah.
parallels the idea of a higher power being needed in order I through overcoming a behavior or an addiction or a substance that has become unhealthy, and what acknowledging why that's hard, because the substance becomes what makes you feel better, and you can't just take away that substance, you have to replace it with something. And we were talking about
Right.
higher power, so let me play this
Because the
for you
alcohol
really.
became your higher power in a sense.
Absolutely, yeah, I worshipped it. Let's hear Jordan.
About the only cure for alcoholism that's ever been discovered is religious transformation. All the atheist researchers know this too. They don't know why.
Right.
But I believe the reason for it is actually quite straightforward, is that if alcohol really works for you, it calms anxiety, it increases hope. It increases the sense of belonging. It's an extremely useful source of calories. It's a blast. It's fun. Like, why would you give that up? And the answer seems to be you have to find something better, right? You have to find a spirit that's more nourishing. The 12-step programs are, of course, predicated on that. If you have a addiction, if you're hooked on something that's immediate and instrumental, you can't just stop doing that. You have to replace it with a much more profound source of gratification.
And the higher power in AA. So,
Yeah.
so that's
And
super
again, the
interesting.
higher power can still be the chair. If it needs to be the chair, it can be the chair if it works for you. It can be another religion if you really are strong on other religions and you don't like us talking about Christ. That's fine. This is just it's working for us, and this is what we're talking about in this podcast, and hopefully you can accept that.
Yeah, it really comes down to the idea of like you realize that the decisions that you're making are poor decisions, and your poor decisions may have got you into this place. So what you need to do is get some outside counsel and maybe pick up some extra tools. That could be doing your own research, that could be going to a meeting, that could be going to anything like that and just trying to figure out what's going on. Now, you said something interesting. So we talk about the idea it's not as simple as just stopping because the pain comes back, right?
Right.
And what alcohol does is it kind of depresses us and it depresses those feelings. And you had a really good point about a test we do on the streets as a police officer. Yeah.
The
So would you
horizontal.
explain that a little bit?
Well, the reason why it's an effective test on the roadside sobriety test is because alcohol does depress your systems, and including, like, we have a natural stimulus in our eyes. Our eyes are always twitching a little bit. You just can't see it because it goes so fast. When you drink
And
a lot of alcohol,
what do you mean by that? Like it's twitching like left to right, or what
yeah,
do you
there's
mean?
just a natural stimulus in your eye where your muscles are just kind of trying to fine tune where you're going. You don't notice it when you're looking. You can't see it if I look in your eyes really close. But if you drink a lot of alcohol, that depressing your system takes an effect and it slows that stimulus down and it becomes visible to the naked eye. And that's how scientifically they can actually prove that you are under the influence with that HDN test. That's just per the proof that the alcohol is it is a depressant, even though it makes you feel happy at first. Once you hit that plateau and start coming down, you are feeling the signs of the depression. Your heart rate, your blood pressure, you're calm, you relax, you sleep better, all that stuff because it slows everything down. That's also part of the appeal, in my experience.
For sure. It makes you feel better. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it. I mean, that's why I continue to use alcohol after I knew I had already hit an unhealthy part or usage. I just continue to use it. And I've asked myself many times, like, why? Like, what would drive a person to continuously do something that's harming them? And in my own world, I had to think about that. And
Because there is still a
I
physical addiction part to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was physically addicted to alcohol. I went through withdrawal in a hospital. They had to medicate me, make sure I was stable, all that kind of stuff. And I was lucky enough to end up in a hospital before I went into withdrawal. So I was in the right place at the right time to go through withdrawal.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's perfect for
crazy,
you.
yeah, it's crazy that a person would push themselves all the way to that limit. And I try to figure out what was I dealing with. And beyond being like sad, I was just so fearful of what has happened to my life and what has happened to me. I had deep beliefs that I had no future. I had deep beliefs that I had no worth. And I was just dealing with a lot of fear. But I heard an acronym one time for fear, and it's false evidence appearing real. And it's the idea,
Really.
yeah, that if we're always scared, we're always looking for things to be fearful of, right? We're looking for threats. So let me kind of clarify that a little bit. Tony Robbins does I saw him talking to an audience one time, and he says, "All right, really quick, everyone look around the room and look around for 3 seconds, and then tell me everything you saw that was red." And then they like do it. And then when they come back around, he's like, "All right, so tell me the things that were brown in the room." No one could name one thing. And it's because they were only looking for the red. So if you're always looking for things to correlate with the way you feel, if I'm fearful, I'm looking for things around me to kind of substantiate the way I'm feeling. Does that make
Right.
sense? So
Right.
an example of this, like a big example of this, how fear was arriving in my life once I got sober without the alcohol, is we were working on getting out in public, Kate and I. I had basically spent like almost 2 years at this point, home or at therapy or in AA and like all this kinds of stuff. And we decided that we were going to go downtown St. Louis to go to what's that? It's like the production. I think it's like Korean and they're like swinging on ropes, Shin something. I don't know. Anyway, so we go to
Oh,
it.
like the acrobats kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But we had a really bad seat. So never go to that show and sit above the screen because then you see everything that's going on behind the screen. And we were like way up. We were at the Fox Theater, I guess, downtown. No, where were we? We might have been at the Opera House. I think we were at the Opera House. That's what butts up to the arena, right?
Okay, I think
You know what I'm
so.
talking about
Yeah.
in St. Louis. All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
so in St. Louis, so I like suddenly in the audience, no reason for it, freaked out. Like I was, my heart rate went up. I don't know what happened. I can't even identify if there was a sound, a movement, a noise, something like that. But I looked at Kate and said, I have to leave now. The fear had overwhelmed me. She didn't understand it, but God love her, she went with me. I grabbed her hand. We went down to the main entrance. And when we got down to the main entrance exit, I said to her, we're going to be moving fast. And she's like, what's going on? This is like 7, 8 o'clock at night in downtown St. Louis. And I was so fearful that within like 10 feet, I'm like, honey, we're going to run. And I had her run from the Opera House to what is now the St. Louis Aquarium, which was quite a bit, like 2, 3 blocks.
Oh
And it
wow.
was out of fear with no one had done anything to me. There was no one around. No, but what was happening is I started developing this fear, and every time I looked somewhere, I was imagining what could go wrong or what it was just an overwhelming sense of fear, but it was
Yeah, it
false
was like
evidence
situation, or
appearing
it was
real.
overstimulated. You had too much
Well
stimulus
said.
going on. And especially for the last couple of years after your trauma, you hadn't really been in a crowded area.
No.
So it's
So I,
and that's could be over. I've had some of the same anxieties in public, still do every once in a while, because you can't see everybody's hands at the same time. You can't see
yeah.
everybody's eyes at the same time. You can't try to read everybody's intentions the same way. You can't try to perceive the threat from everybody at the same time. And all of a sudden, it's like it's overwhelming. It's like if 20 people stood around me and everybody were yelling 20 different things, and then I was supposed to pick out what you said.
Right.
I couldn't hear what you
Yeah.
said. I couldn't hear anybody. Everybody was yelling at me. It's just yeah, and it gets you, doesn't it?
So really,
It
so what
got you.
happened? So yeah, they got me. So
It got you
basically,
good.
it got me really good. So I was using alcohol to numb that fear. When I removed alcohol, the fear was back. Now I'm running sober down the road with my wife. She's probably wearing heels. I couldn't even tell you right now. We ran all the way to the car. I thought that I was in serious danger. Like someone had figured out, oh, that's the guy who's the police officer who should be dead. So now I'm dealing with PTSD without the numbing of the alcohol. So I had to develop a relationship with a higher power because anything that I was doing was not solving the problem. And once I started opening myself up to the idea that if it worked for other people, maybe it could work for me, my
There you
life
go.
started to change. Yeah.
And then you
And
notice the change. And that's the
yeah,
really big part for everybody listening. Whenever you do go down this road and you do really give yourself to a higher power and you feel that higher power and you feel that truth and you feel like, wow, how stupid have I been all of my life to just like ignore that this is even a thing or just pass it off as, whatever. It's whatever. It's
I think God,
so eye opening. It's just
I think
hard to
God's been
explain.
against her. Yeah, it's
Oh yeah,
so
he's. I joke about that all the time because I always say I have bad luck, and so something happens and I hit my knuckle doing a screw on something that shouldn't be that hard to do. And I'm like, that's my luck, and I just look up and I go, I know you're just laughing at me up there. This is fun for you. You're the original vet,
yeah.
the original
And that's
combat
like
vet here coming down.
And that's the beautiful thing about how that relationship starts. Because once you're like, all right, I'm going to let you take control of this morning. Let's start that. Let's crack the door on the idea of faith. Like, I'll put my higher power in you today, this morning, between the hours of 10 and 11. You show me what you got. And then nothing bad happens. And you're like, huh. And then you kind of open the door a little bit. You start hearing more stories. You start being like, okay, well, if it worked for him, if it worked for her, maybe it'll work for me. And then like you try the one first step and you're like, well, that wasn't the worst thing. You know what I mean? So why don't I just try the next step? And before you know it, you're acquiring new knowledge, skills, and behaviors that alleviate the fear that you've been running from for so long.
It gives you peace. It quiets the voice. It makes you feel comfortable in your skin. It doesn't make you feel alone. It doesn't make you feel the pain. And it all
Mhm.
becomes a solution. It fixes you. It becomes the answer that alcohol was to your
Right.
problems that you were having.
And I
And
think that's
but
why they say
facing your fears is also part of it as well. And you were doing that as well also by talking about it and not stop drinking. That helped you
yeah,
too.
for sure. And it's just, yeah, it's nuts. So what's funny is like really quick story. You know what? So basically, fear played not only a small part in my life, which I didn't want to be going on, right? I like the idea that I was being pushed around by fear. So what do? Your ego goes, I'm not scared, that sort of thing. But I'm sitting in this fear. I need help. I can't use alcohol. It's going to kill me. And that's where I finally, and I think that's why they say it in religion, I surrendered. I stopped being like, well, if I do this, you do that, or if you do that, I'll do this, and
Yeah, bargain.
negotiating. And just basically, you have to, that's, I think, why that word fits so perfect, is you have to surrender your will
Mm-hmm.
over to that higher power, which makes
Yeah. Yeah, it
to
makes
an
total
addict,
sense when you think about it now.
yeah, you just have to hand it over. And I didn't think it was going to work for me, but honestly, the whole idea was like, well, I'm going to die anyways of it. So if I don't try, people are, I saying it out loud, just like I would in a therapist. I just caught myself. I probably was thinking that if I didn't try AA when I die, people were going to think I was more of a loser than had I tried and then failed anyway.
Yeah.
Like that's a spontaneous utterance, but I was literally just like, I have to go through this process so that even if I fail, people know I tried. Actually, another spontaneous utterance right there. So it shouldn't be other people know I tried. It should be so I know with all my heart that I tried.
I tried. Very good point. Very good point.
That I won't lie there, potentially dying in the future, wishing, oh my God, I wish I would have been able to give up the alcohol. I wish I would have surrendered or even stay surrendered, stay humble.
Staying
It's
humble is
tough.
another good one, and that's tough,
It's very tough. My ego runs about 10 feet in front of me at my worst.
right? I'm looking for a retirement job right now, and I'm looking through things that I'm actually qualified for as an older retired police officer. I'm like, that's beneath me. I can't do that. Wait a minute. Who the hell you think you are?
Exactly. Thank God you're catching yourself because I think a lot of people aren't catching themselves because
Oh, 100%. A hundred
they're
percent. I mean,
following the
there's so many
crowd.
times in my life I wasn't catching it.
Right. And that's funny because it's like maturing later in life. You know what I mean? Where it's like really because a lot of times people won't look back at things they did and take ownership of how they weren't maybe the right things, right? But how else do you learn? How else do you develop? So eventually, I think you kind of like if you allow yourself, you can get to a place where you can look back at yourself with kindness and a laugh because you realize you can't change it.
Well, that's love.
But
Look at it with love.
well said.
It doesn't have to be like, gushy love or romantic love or what are the different agape love. It just needs to be a loving thought, caring about somebody as a human being.
Yeah, well said. That's what it's about. Love or fear. Yep.
That's why they say Jesus is love. God is love. That's why he doesn't mince words. He actually knows what he's saying. It's kind of surprising. Like the person invented everything that we see and made existence happen. Kind of knows everything what's going on. Does know the keys to our success. We just have to listen to it or
Why did he
understand
make
or
me?
read it or look at it and be involved in it and surrender to it, like you said.
Why did he make me so stubborn then? All
You
right.
probably asked to be
Well,
stubborn before you got born. You
that's
said,
a whole
"Give me your worst. I can handle it."
that's a whole nother episode. But I truly believe that happens.
I kind of do too, actually. But yeah, you're right. Other episodes.
One funny thing about sobriety for me is like, so I've surrendered, I've given it up. It's my higher powers graduated from a chair to an actual, my Lord and
Deity.
Savior Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually like, you know what I mean? It's not just trying not to make dumb decisions. It's actually
Right.
listening for what should I do here. And so part of the AA program is you actually get coins or chips like as you go through the program, right? So we talked about
Yeah.
it in another episode where the first chip you get is usually a white chip and it represents a burning desire to get sober. So you could be drunk right then and there, like walked a meeting and you could say, I am ready to surrender. I am licked. I've had enough, please. And then you get a white chip, which is a symbol of a burning desire to quit drinking, right? So that gets you through the first 24 hours. Then you get another chip for getting through a month. You get another chip for going through 3. You get another chip for going through 6. You get another chip for going through 9. And in my case, I was in an all male men's AA group, and the chips were really cool. But they're all plastic, like poker chips, until you get that first year coin, which is like a metal one that just has like a 1 on it. I've collected all my coins, and I'll bring them on here sometime. But so I get all the way to I hit my year of sobriety. Something I never thought I'd ever be first off proud of, but I really had worked my ass off at it. Like really had to focus on me instead of letting my mind go into other places or what people might think, whatever, blah blah blah. I had to put my ego in check every time it popped up. But what happened was on the day I got my coin, what you do is you get your coin, and in this meeting we would pass it around. And there was about like
Okay.
30 to 40, yeah, there's like 30 to 40 guys in this meeting, and you're supposed to pass around the chips so they kind of put some love on it. They can put a prayer over it. They can say, please watch over this person,
But it also gives
whatever.
them a goal. If they haven't hit the year yet, they get to see it. They get to see the whole pageantry of everybody coming together and rejoicing on your 1 year sobriety, and that gives them some more food for their goals or food for their fire.
Yeah.
I want that. I want that. It becomes a kind of an important little thing.
And it's important also for the guys who've been in AA for a while, because if you've been in 5 years, it's really easy to forget how like the creature that you were when you first came in. You know what I mean? Like
I can see
there is
that.
a big maturity within that first year, like huge. And but what happened to me is like we're passing around the coin. I'm super proud. I never thought I'd be this proud. It's being passed in this meeting between, like homeless people, and then there's a neurosurgeon, then there's a firefighter, and then, like all these kinds of stuff. But I never get the coin back. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like Gollum. You know what I mean? Like, my precious, where is it? I'm like standing at the door. I'm standing at the door, like, who took my chip? Check your pockets. I was towards the end, I was standing at the door being like, pull the stuff, pull whatever's in your pocket out. Like I was a police officer. Yeah, I did that. I was fucking serious. And they knew it. And it had been a coin that someone had actually, it was their first year coin that they gave to me. They're like, I want to give you my first year coin, so this will give you some good luck and whatever to get through the next year. So now I feel like I've lost that coin. I'm turning into Gollum. I want it back. I'm like pissed off for a week. And I go back to the meeting because it was a weekly meeting, and a guy comes up to me. He's like, hey, I know you're pissed off about this last week, but I got your coin. I'm like, where the hell was it? He goes, I accidentally put it in my pocket. All right. So easy. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Put the guns down.
So
Put the guns down.
now I'm apologizing. I'm like, yeah, I might have
You let that
reacted.
ego. You let that ego get back into you a little bit. But I mean, it's kind of understandable too. A year is a long time to really put a lot of work into yourself.
Yeah.
But that's
And
just
that
another
coin.
reminder. You can let that pride and ego come right back just like that, even over your success.
Oh my
Man,
gosh. Yeah.
I mean, just the perspectives of looking at things from different angles can always open your mind.
It's nuts. Yeah. Like I was literally having people pull their jean pocket, the fronts out. They're like, see, I don't got it. And I'm like, okay, then move.
What's that? All right, on to the next one. Nobody leaves this room till I get my coin back.
Well, the problem was I had already half the people had left, including the guy who had took it. So I'm isolating these other people, like at least 15 of them, being like, "What about you? What about you? What about you?" You know what I mean? Because everyone's just like, what do we do with this guy?" And the coin isn't what mattered, right?
Yeah,
That's the scary thing when I look back at it. It's a piece of metal.
but it felt like your achievement wasn't recognized or was taken away from you because you didn't have it in your hand.
Well, yeah, it's like the coin represented my success compared to I hadn't drank for a
You're
whole
still
year.
you're still externalizing the feeling that you should be internalizing.
Yep. Yeah, I literally had fought off dying that year,
Yeah.
and from my own hand. And for some reason, that coin was made out of not anything you could spend in a. You couldn't spend it. You know what I mean? It's like a. It's an AA coin. There's millions of them. I could have gotten another one. But I was just so focused. Like my precious, give me. But
It's good that you
yeah,
can recognize it though, looking back too. This is also a good sign of maturity and growth and coming out of that darkness and getting out of shit creek.
it turns out like when I believe, like right now, I believe like I'm making good decisions, blah blah blah. A year from now, I'll turn around and be like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like you see, if you
Yeah.
let yourself see yourself maturing, the good, the bad, the ugly, laugh at how silly, stupid, and ignorant you were because you didn't know, and you're
I
being told by the rest of the
probably
world that
should
you
have, but
should know. Like the rest of the world is telling you, you should know the answers to these things. You shouldn't
right.
have this problem. I
I
don't
wouldn't have
have
that
that
problem.
problem. Yep. So
No, but you have a different
again,
problem. Yours is an alcohol, yours is meth, bud. I don't know. Yours is porn. My problem was I was with all of them probably. Over, like you said, for was it the personal pleasure, the pleasure seeking behavior. That's it. The pleasure seeking
yeah,
behavior.
because that takes you farther away from the place you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Simple as
And
that.
that's probably why I was drinking too much, and that's also probably why I was abusing porn too much, and everything had to be a party. What dirty jokes can I tell to not think about mortality? I want to say something that nobody's ever thought of before, and I make them laugh.
Yeah.
It's just
Dude,
never
I'm
ending.
so proud of you. Like I love you so much. Like I'm so proud of you for like sharing and us doing this together
Same to you. I mean,
because
this was your baby first. You brought it up, and I'm trying to just be here and be a good accelerator.
no, you are, but I really appreciate you sharing like your journey because, like we all have our story. We're just the ones talking about it right now. Before you
Right.
know it, it's going to become fashionable to talk about this stuff.
It's already kind
Fashionable.
of starting to do it. There's a couple other like you said. There's some military podcasts where people are doing it. About Black Rifle Coffee Company's doing a few too, with veterans
Yeah.
talking about war situations and things. And I hope it continues. I really do. It's awesome because it is healing. You can feel the healing with yourself. I can see it in you, and you can see it with me. I can feel it with myself, and you can feel it with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. What an amazing gift God has given us to give us this opportunity to turn what could have been the worst part of my life, maybe the worst part of your life, maybe something that could have defined us for the rest of our lives, and that we did the abnormal thing and was basically sought help. So that's pretty fucking amazing. I'm so proud of everybody who's out there struggling and
Yeah, we're
not
proud of
giving
you.
up.
Tell us
Yeah,
your
I'm.
success stories too. When you're sending us things about your problems
That's
that
all.
you've gone through, tell us some success stories if you've already gotten through it. Tell us how it worked for you. If you're in the
Yeah,
middle of it, let us help you get through it. If you're at the beginning of it and you don't know where to start, find a way.
absolutely.
I don't know.
Nobody is at the end. That's the thing. Like I can't even say, "Oh, here's alcoholism, and here's I'm an
Yeah,
alcoholic, but this is
I'm
what I did, and
completely
now I'm
cured.
not." Yeah,
I'm completely cured.
I'm
I'll never
working
have
on it.
another
So I,
problem again the rest of my life.
yeah. So we
No more
need
trauma is
other.
ever going to happen to me now.
Not a, I am totally aware now that I am an idiot, and that I'm a developing person compared to everyone thinks you're supposed to know all the answers. And if you don't know the answer, act like you know the answer so you don't look stupid. That keeps you
Yeah.
in the same place. So it is what it is. But we're so proud of everyone out there who's working towards a better self. Okay. We want to hear your success stories, whether it's small, large. I don't care. I want to know that you made the choice. You know what? I'm going to try. Because the more people we hear on here trying and somehow getting out of stuff, even though we're not talking about like hero stories, we're talking about just base, like normal, everyday People going through shit and deciding that it's not going to define them and they're not going to succumb to it, that they're going to work as long as they can and they will not give up. So, for anyone with those stories or anyone who's still struggling and has questions, they can reach out to us at shitcreekpodcast@gmail.com. You can check the website out at www.shitcreeksurvivors.com. And specifically for anyone who's interested in gaining further information about PTSD, we've also set up a website, ptsdsupport.org, so that others can benefit from others' experiences going through PTSD and how they got better. Besides that, you got anything to leave all these amazing people with?
I'm all good for now. I think we did. It was a good episode, and I appreciate you too, brother.
Yeah, I love you, and I will talk to you shortly.
All right, sounds like a plan.